Hello and welcome to Fit News. I am your host, Jen Shaver, and today my guest is Dawn McGee. She is a nutrition evangelist and balanced life expert, and as the founder of Reclaim Your Life One Bite at a Time program, and also the author of 365 Days of Healthy Living. She puts the fun back into being healthy. Dawn specializes in working with women who want a more sustainable balance in their lives so that they can do all the things that bring them joy and just need someone to get them started and guide them through the process. Working together, Dawn empowers her clients to embrace their vision of better health and inspires them to make small, meaningful changes so that they can live the life that they want, all without needing 26 hours in their day. As a certified and licensed Venice nutrition coach and longtime foodie, Dawn does love to travel and enjoy local cuisines. She focuses on both the health and the joy of food. She has been coaching clients in person, online, in groups, and in one-to-one capacity for more than a dozen years. Dawn has a delightful 18-year-old son who is a second-degree black belt in karate and is moving on to college next year. He's also trying to figure out what's going to happen with his next phase of life. She also has a wonderfully supportive husband who she has been married to for over 20 years. And now I have two great fun facts that I need to share about Dawn because I thought these were so interesting, and I know that you will too. So here they are. Dawn used to compete at the semi-pro level in 9-ball, as in pool or billiards. And this one's great. She met her husband playing beach volleyball in Turks Caicos. All right, Dawn, welcome to Fit News today. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I know we have a lot to chat about, and we have a lot in common because we both want to help women, right? Find those sustainable, manageable changes, right? Not complicate things. So let's talk first about your journey.
Absolutely. Jen, thanks so much for having me on today. I'm really excited about where this conversation is going to go. I love the synergies between our philosophies.
Yes.
And as you can tell, I've always had a little bit of an aspect of the food and the fitness and the fun, and it took a little while to figure out how that all turned itself into a business, quite frankly, right?
Right.
Because you live it and you share it and you feel it, and it's not the same. There are a lot of people who are like, oh, you've always been fill in the blank here, right? You've always been healthy, you've always been fit. And it's really not true. I grew up in New York City where we have tons of food options.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah. You can't take 2 steps without pizza, right? Or something else.
And I love to say that I travel by stomach. When I go back to New York, the first things I look for are a good slice of pizza and one of those big fluffy pretzels with mustard, right?
Oh, yes.
So definitely a foodie, so I had all these food options, and yet I never learned how to eat to really fuel my body.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's fun, sure, and
Right.
all the flavors and the cuisines, but yet if we don't give due credence to the fact that we really need food to fuel our body and our brain, as well as feed our soul, well, then we're not helping ourselves live a long, healthy, happy life. And so that was a real learning for me. It was a journey for me. I grew up in a household where it was all about finish what's on your plate.
The Clean Plate Club. I think that's
yes.
part of our generation, right?
It truly
the
is.
Clean Plate Club. No, yeah.
It was absolutely finish what's on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what you're going to eat. Here's what I'm making. And sometimes that was, my dad was a meat and potatoes guy. So, very often that was a slab of meat and canned vegetables and
canned peas.
right. And so we know where that leads, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't lead anywhere good. And as I grew up, I didn't learn any different. I would grab a slice of pizza on the way home from school, and then we'd have dinner and all the things. So, and when I was young, I was also very active.
Yeah.
Being in New York, you're walking everywhere. You're not just shuffling from door to car. And So you could argue that I was outrunning my fork for a very long time.
Right.
And it worked. I'll put worked in air quotes because
Yeah.
what does work really mean? It kept me sort of feeling like I was healthy and, relatively fit. Fine. Until college, my senior year of college, where I wrecked my knee in a skiing accident, and I could no longer outrun my fork. My
Right.
fork caught up to me,
Ah,
and so I had to learn new habits. And like a lot of women out there, I tried all the things. I did the diets, I did the Weight Watchers,
yeah.
I did the not eating, I did the
Mm,
frozen dinners, I all the things, and still wasn't really learning what it meant to feel my body. And I sort of muddled along, right? Any
right.
diet can work for a point in time, but I was miserable. And I knew in my soul that there had to be a better way. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that there had to be a better way. And so I kept muddling on until I had my son, and really, really struggled to lose that pregnancy weight.
Yeah.
I was absolutely one of those women who used my pregnancy as an excuse to do whatever I wanted. You know them. I was
Eating for
one.
two, right?
Eating for two. Well, the second one was pretty darn small, and he really didn't need all that I was feeding him. Right. So I struggled. And he was 6 when I was having lunch with a really good friend of mine talking about my baby weight. And she said, Dawn, he's 6. It's not baby weight anymore. And that I was
Yeah.
really taken aback, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it
Yeah.
was just a big wake up call.
Yeah. That probably, yeah, that hit hard, I'm sure.
It did. I said, oh, okay, I love you, but
Yeah.
ouch.
Yeah.
And
But
I
I mean,
really
that
had
was
to
a good,
look.
yeah.
It made a difference in sort of what I was looking. And at that point, it was, do I dig in and figure out what's next, or
hmm
do I just go buy larger clothes and throw up my hands?
Yeah.
And I was really fortunate at that time to meet the founder of Venice Nutrition
hmm
and learn about the science of balancing your blood sugar,
Right.
eating a balance of protein, fat, and carbs. Now, I'm a geek at heart. My background's in science, so all of this science really spoke to me,
Right.
and it made sense. It's got a really genuine science background to it, and it works.
Right.
Now, my definition of works is I don't feel like I'm on a diet. I'm not thinking about my
hmm
food all the time in a negative way. I may be thinking about like what great flavors I'm going to pair, and
Right.
that's okay.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be thinking about, oh, gee, I only have 200 calories left for the day, and
Right. How
how am
many
I going
points
to
is
have?
this?
Right. And how many points is this? And what macros do I have to have?
Yeah.
That's not a healthy way of thinking about food.
No. No.
Right, because we have so many other things to do with our lives
Oh,
besides
yeah.
thinking about how many points or calories or whatever
Right.
we're going to eat. So I learned about how to balance my protein, my fat, and my carbs,
hmm
how to eat portions that served my body, that were right sized for me,
hmm
not someone who's 6 feet tall or 5 feet tall. Right, I'm
Right.
right in the middle. I need what my body needs.
Right.
And so I learned all about that, and I was so inspired. I became a certified and licensed nutrition coach.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the beginning of this journey. Fast forward another handful of years, and I work with clients, and yet there was this aspect of dry and boring to it. That, right? Now, I'm a foodie, right?
Right.
I have a good glass of wine. I have great food.
Right.
And so that was the next big evolution of my business, is to marry those two together, the food and the fun and the nutrition, and to teach people how to live a really, really enjoyable food life, but not just a food life, a full balanced life. Because that
Right.
balance beam, it doesn't just have a plate of food on it. Am I
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
Right?
And we're surrounded by food, and there are so many activities that revolve around food, if you will.
Right.
So there's no getting away from it. So you might
No.
as well learn how to A, enjoy it and not fear it, and B, how to manage it, right?
Right. Right. And I think that you mentioned the fear. That is arguably one of the top three things that my clients need support on,
Right.
is how to take the fear out of the bread bowl is at the table. My
Right.
friend invited me for dinner and I don't know what she's serving. I'm going
Mhm.
to a cocktail party. What do I do? I'm like,
Right.
take a deep breath, because the first thing you need to do is release that stress,
Right.
because otherwise that just sabotages your health goals
Hmm. Right.
right
Right.
off the bat,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's all about balance, and it's
Right.
all about fun.
Right.
And it's how do you ride that balance beam in a way that you don't fall off. Sometimes we'll fall off, but you get back on.
Right. And the key is knowing how to get back on, right?
Right. That's right.
Yeah. And then also, you mentioned going to the cocktail party or going to the friend's house for dinner. So often people are so quick when they go on their quote unquote diet that they're so quick to skip these things, right? And almost miss out on many occasions and celebrations because, again, we go back to that whole fear thing. So it's as you were saying, learning what you can do in these situations and how to handle them without
Right.
that fear. Yeah.
And balance is a continuum.
Right.
There isn't any one perfect spot of balance,
Mm-hmm.
right? So sometimes you're going to balance a little bit further towards the clean eating side of things,
Right.
and you'll say, you know what, feeling kind of bloated, been going out a lot, and I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna treat my body well,
Right.
not deprive it, but I'm gonna treat it well. So I'm gonna feel better,
Right.
so that when I do go to that next party, that next barbecue, that next, well, it's graduation season, all the things,
Right.
then I don't have to stress about compounding the effects of feeling bloated and blah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
Right.
and so that's really where the sweet spot, the sweet continuum is, right? is a little bit of balance and shifting balance depending upon what life is throwing at you, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing how to manage that without the stress and
Yeah.
enjoying it.
Right. And I have a good question now for you. So often you will hear somebody say, um, oh, but when I get around whatever it is, let's take when I get around a bag of potato chips, I just can't help myself and I have to eat the whole thing, right?
Mhm.
What do you say to those people?
So there are a couple of things to say to those people. One is that when they embark on this journey of knowing how to balance their blood sugar,
Mm-hmm.
so many of those cravings go away. They
Right.
really and truly do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of magic, but it's really more a lot of science.
Right.
Um, and the second thing is for them to really take a hard look in the mirror and
Mm-hmm.
understand what's behind that.
Right.
Is there an emotional craving? Is there habitual craving? Is it just, when you get around these old college friends, for example, and your habits with them are to drink beer and eat French fries,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's just the story you've got ingrained, and it's time to change that story.
Right.
And
Right.
very often, once you know what's behind it, then you have the power to change it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as
So,
long as you're just relying on old habits and old stories, then you're powerless to change it.
right. Right. And in other words, what is your perception of that? What are you feeding your mind first about whatever it is?
Right.
Whether it's the
Yeah.
potato chips, the cake, the cupcakes, whatever, the ice cream, whatever, right?
I
What
mean,
is it?
what is it that some of the stories that I hear from people that they're telling themselves are, if I don't have this cake, if I don't go to this party, if I don't have that drink, my friends will make fun of me. They won't
Uh-huh.
want to hang around with me anymore.
Right.
They'll think that I'm no fun.
Right.
So they have to examine that
Yeah.
and whether or not that's true. I hope it's not, because then maybe you need to find some new friends.
I was just going to say, because I do feel that sometimes that is the case. So often if you say, I'm going to, I don't want the drink, or, I don't want the cake tonight, because maybe you had cake the night before and you just don't want it anymore. Right.
Right.
And you just pass on it. And well, what's wrong with, are you on a diet? There is a lot of stigma behind passing on some of these things. And, you almost, it is difficult to navigate. So you do have to be prepared as the one who is taking the pass, right? To handle those situations and be confident in that this is what I'm choosing for my body
Right.
today. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And I watch how my son listens. He's
Hmm.
18, he's about to head off to college, and his food choices will be 100% in his hands,
Right.
right? And so, he said, "Well, why are you're not having that last slice of pizza? It's just a small slice of pizza." And so I'd say, "Well, I'm satisfied right now. If I have
Right.
that slice of pizza, I will be over full and then I won't feel good.
Yeah.
And so I'm choosing not to."
Yeah.
And that's so different than the language of, I don't have enough points to have that slice of pizza, right? Or
Right.
it's so different. It's
Yeah.
the result is the same,
Hmm.
but you're making a positive intentional choice
Right.
instead of being trapped in someone else's framework for you.
Right. But because once you start listening to your own body, it's a whole new world.
Right. Right. And I will say, look, if you're hungry, by all means eat that.
Right.
But rarely is your hunger going to be satisfied by a bowl of chocolate chips. Let's take a look instead at something that have the chocolate chips. That can absolutely be occasionally the carb portion of your meal. But
Right.
let's look at how you're going to balance that with a good protein and fat
Right.
so that your blood sugar doesn't spike and then crash in
Hmm.
20 minutes.
Right.
So it's a learning process. One of the things that is very important to me is teaching our next generation
Hmm.
how to think differently about food and fuel in their bodies so that they don't go through this cycle. And that maybe by the time our grandkids are around, they will know that diet is a noun and not a verb.
I love that. Yes. Yep.
And
Exactly.
that's what I'm working on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it is very important because when we look at the rates of childhood obesity and how they continue to grow, we as adults need to take notice of that. And how can we help? How can we change that? And what is our role? Right.
Absolutely. I think that you and I are of the same generation. We sort of grew up in the era where frozen dinners were cool
Right.
and they were chic, and
Hmm.
so the TV tables were
Yeah.
a treat,
Yes.
right? Right.
Yes. Yes.
And we've let that go too far.
Yeah.
We've taken that from being a treat and something special to
Hmm.
being the everyday norm and not thinking about what we're putting into our body. The
Right.
mindfulness
Right.
really needs to come back.
Right. Right. I mean, it used to be, even with my kids, they're older now, they're in college, but, fast food was uh, few and far between, and if they were going to get the Happy Meal because they would see the commercial on TV, they had to, it had to be a special reason. It wasn't just, we're having dinner, so here's your Happy Meal.
Right. Right. I
but
used to
but
joke
now the
that
case is it,
it's
it's
normal.
it's
Yeah.
normal, and that has got to change because that's not healthy.
It's not, I think we don't understand the repercussions of adding in the processed food
Right.
to our diet, right?
Hmm.
I used to joke that my son was the only toddler who thought that McDonald's only made apple slices,
Yeah.
because when he was little, that was
Yes.
the only
Uh-huh.
thing that he got there.
Yeah.
And then as he grew up, there are chicken
Hmm.
nuggets added. Um, and it wasn't until this year, his senior year in high school, that he actually had a burger in a fast food place. And it was
Yeah.
only because that's where his friends were going and
Right.
that's where their
Right.
funds allowed them
Hmm.
to. He's like, Mom, it was terrible.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we did something right.
Made it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, it is, it's something that, we as a society too need to take note of, that we have a whole generation of kids that are heading down this path, and it's not a healthy path.
It's not the processed foods, the extra ingredients. We oversimplify it and say, look, if you can't pronounce the ingredient, you probably shouldn't be putting it into your body.
Hmm.
And that's a fine place to start for people,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
If it comes in a box,
Yeah.
maybe you should reconsider.
Right.
And yet, there are a lot of families who don't have the means or the time or the
Right.
knowledge to do differently. So we
Hmm.
have to help them make choices
Right.
that are the best choices they can make with the situation that they're in.
Right. Right. Exactly. Looking at, you mentioned something. Let's talk about start where you are, right? Because that's just like you said, some people might not have the means right now. So start where you are, right? What
Absolutely.
are some things that people could do to start where they are?
So there are so many things depending upon where your starting point is.
Right.
But let's say you don't have the food knowledge, you don't have the foundation to know what you're doing. And it's maybe it's not that interesting to you where you are.
Mm-hmm.
What are some super simple things you can do to start working towards rebalancing your life? Well, the first thing I would say from a food perspective is look at the proteins you're putting into your body, because it's so easy for us to fill in the carbs and the fats.
Yeah.
They are the primary piece of our American diet.
Right.
And so if you start looking at proteins, and my son is like, Mom, it's so hard being your son because you always ask me where the protein is in my meal. Well, you know, it serves your body. You need
Right.
that for building and retaining your lean muscle. So,
Yeah.
think about what form your proteins are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Are they, a chicken, a beef, pork? Those are some good lean proteins to choose. If you're counting on like cheese and peanut butter to be your protein, well, know that those can be more inflammatory to your system. They have a higher component of fat in them. Fish is great.
Right.
Know that some fish, like salmon, has a good portion of fat in it. It's healthy fat. It's good fat, but we don't need to add more fat to a salmon meal. Same
Right.
goes for red meat. It's already got a good component of fat in it. And choose that wisely. How are you preparing it? Are you going to saute it in half a pound of butter? Maybe not the best place to start, but start where you are, right? If
Yeah.
you used to fry it, then taking it out of the fryer and putting it into a saute pan is an excellent place to start.
Right.
Steps forward,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Small manageable change, as
That's right.
we mentioned earlier. Yeah.
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 I like to say 1% at a time
Yeah.
gets you very, very far,
Right.
just tiny bits. So, and we're bound to fail if we try to do everything all at once.
That's just it. And don't you think that's so often, especially in January, right?
Yeah.
January,
Yes.
when everybody decides that life needs to change completely, right? And they turn everything upside down. And then, of course, by February, March, they've fallen off because they haven't eaten the elephant one bite at a time, right?
That's right. That's right. And that's such a key component of any success. So
Yeah.
so we've launched a program called 100 Days of 1%, which means you're
Oh,
just doing little bits every
mm,
day.
yeah.
And then we get to look back after 100 days and see how far you've truly come. It's
Right.
amazing.
Yeah.
And so sure, food is a great place to start.
Hmm.
Food's not the only place that we need more balance in our life.
Right.
A little bit more movement is good.
Hmm.
Even just standing gives you a little bit more. Like I'm at a standing desk right
Right.
now.
Hmm.
So I'm using more core muscles just to stand instead of sitting in a chair.
Right.
I try to go out for a walk. I put it in my calendar. It's important to make time for yourself. So wherever you are, wherever your level of activity is now,
Hmm.
if you can add 10 more minutes,
Right.
Instead of sitting for the whole time at lunch, maybe you just go around the block.
Right.
Maybe you go up and down a flight of stairs. Wherever you are, just do a little bit more. That
Right.
makes all the difference.
It does. And I think that's where a lot of people tend to miss the boat is they think, well, I don't have 60 minutes, right? Because we're so used to, again, I go back to our generation, we're so used to exercise classes being 60 minutes, right? And so our first thought when, somebody says you need to exercise more, well, I don't have 60 minutes, right? I'm a busy lady. I've got work, I've got kids, I've got parents I'm taking care of, I've got all this stuff, right? I don't have 60 minutes, but they don't need 60 minutes. They
They
just
don't.
start.
They need
And
10, or
yeah,
maybe they don't need any extra time at all. I
right.
spend a lot of time on phone calls because I work with people all over the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can be standing, I can be doing squats, I can be
Right.
doing leg lifts,
Mm-hmm.
all while I'm talking to somebody, and not, well, maybe it'll be a little distracting if I'm on video,
Right. But
but if I'm not on video, there's a
right.
lot you can do.
Right. Right.
And so I encourage people to get creative and to think out of the box.
Right. And I think that's just it. It's about thinking outside of the box and not the norm, right? Not that 60 minutes dedicated, while you're brushing your teeth, while you're on a phone call, while you're waiting at the microwave for whatever, right? I mean, all of those times, instead of being idle times, can be movement times. And that could add up to 60 minutes throughout the day without you taking that extra time.
Absolutely. And then when you get a little bit more adventurous, it can be on the sidelines of the soccer game.
Yep.
While the kids are warming up, you can be warming up. I mean,
Yeah.
there are so many things if we take the sides of the box off
Right.
and we
Right.
look at things. And so those are things that I'll brainstorm with clients
Mm-hmm.
because they often don't know what they're not thinking of.
Right.
Right? If they knew it, they would do it.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And because I like to think of things in threes, I find that threes are
Oh.
very good, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
start with our protein, we
Mm-hmm.
get a little bit more movement. If you can just do one more thing in your life, I would say
Mm-hmm.
to take a look at your sleep.
Yeah.
Because as a society, we're kind of chronically sleep deprived.
Right.
And there
Right.
used to be this badge of honor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I team no sleep. I
Yep.
stayed up
Yep.
all night to do this project.
Yeah.
And we really need to flip the script on that.
Yeah.
We need to know that our sleep is important. We would never expect our cell phones to work without a battery charge. And yet we expect our bodies to function
Mm-hmm.
at full performance on 4 hours of sleep.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's, the saying, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Well, you're going to die a lot sooner if you don't sleep. So, okay.
Absolutely. I tell my younger clients that the way you treat your body in the first half of your life dictates the quality at which you get to live in the second half of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're not
Very
talking
cool.
about fitness competitions, most of
Mm-hmm.
us. We're
Right.
not talking about being runway models. We're not
Right.
talking about any of those things that we see in the magazines that deceive us into thinking that we can never be enough.
Yep.
We're talking about kicking a soccer ball around with our grandkids,
Yes.
being able to get on the floor when they're toddlers, and being able to get up off the floor when they need to
Right.
move on, right?
Right. Right.
Little things that right now we take for granted, but if we don't treat our bodies well, then we're not really going to get there.
Right. Yep. It's all about the preparation, right? We spend so much time preparing our retirement account.
Right.
When are you going to prepare your body for that retirement, right?
Right. There's multiple accounts we have to look at.
Yeah.
If I can't enjoy it, then what's the point?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Dawn, how can people work with you?
So there are a couple of different ways people work with me. We've
Mhm,
got a couple of group programs that we love. I mentioned 100 Days of 1%.
mhm.
I've got another course called Reclaim Your Life One Bite at a Time, which teaches all of the foundational elements of
Okay,
eating, moving, and recharging and how to make that stick for a lifetime. And I take on some private clients as well.
okay. And where can people find you online?
I think the best place to find me is probably Facebook.
Okay.
I've got a business page called Dawn McGee Nutrition Evangelist. And if you message me, I promise to get back to you.
All right. Wonderful. Dawn, it was so much fun chatting with you today, and we appreciate you sharing all that you have today.
Thanks, Jen. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Fit News. We will see you next time.